back to the channel. Just wanted to start off with a thank you. The last two videos that I've done, my first two videos on YouTube, they've amassed around 3,500 each, which I was massively and pleasantly surprised by. When I shared the channel initially and started the channel, I had 2 subscribers and now we're up to about 600, so I'm absolutely blown away by that. Thank you very much, Sunderland fans, for turning up and supporting the channel. Today we're going to have a little chat about Sunderland's star man, Jack Clarke. I've written about this extensively on the Sunderland Echo website, which is my day job. I'm a football journalist over there, cover Sunderland throughout the day. So there is a piece entitled Jack Clarke Transfer and Contract Update after latest Sunderland negotiations and West Ham interest, which will give you a little bit more information than I'm going to give here today. This is going to be sort of my opinions as well on where I think this Jack Clarke transfer saga, if you want to call it that, where it's headed in January. So it's my understanding that actually Sunderland's contract talks with Jack Clarke, they're at an impasse, which means that the two parties haven't managed to agree on a new deal for Jack Clarke. But Sunderland are protected in a sense. Jack Clarke signed a 4-year deal with Sunderland back in 2020 after his loan stint, which means he still has 2.5 years left on his current contract, which leaves Sunderland with some security. And it's funny, actually, I was thinking about this the other day, but when Clarke initially signed for Sunderland on loan during the January of that last season in League One, he was played as a left wing back at times under Alex Neil, which is crazy to think now. And I was also thinking back to the playoff final as well, and Jack Clarke was the one that was dropped for Elliot Embleton, who ended up scoring against Wycombe Wanderers and helped Sunderland return to the Championship. That sort of scenario now is actually unthinkable. Jack Clarke getting dropped from Sunderland. And, you know, the two players' careers in question there, Jack Clarke and Elliot Embleton. I'm a massive fan of Elliot Embleton, brilliant footballer, but unfortunately he's been injured now for a long time. He was injured against Hull last season, then went out on loan to Derby, got injured there again, so he's missed a whole year of football, really, Elliot Embleton, whereas Jack Clarke's gone from strength to strength. So I just thought that was an interesting aside, the two contrasting fortunes of those two players. Basically, Jack Clarke's performances this season have pushed contract negotiations high up the agenda on Sunderland fans' minds, on everybody's minds, really. His performances merit a good wage and merit the talk surrounding him. But it's also caused interest, you know, some of which we know of. We know Burnley bid several times during the last couple of windows, you know, big money bids of 8, 9 and 10 million, which seem a bit derisory for Jack Clarke, but that is good money from the Championship. There's also reported interest now from West Ham. There's my understanding that there's teams in Germany and France and in Europe who are interested in Jack Clarke, who is still fairly young as well. So he's got good pedigree, he's performing well. And there's interest in him because he's doing so well for Sunderland. I think the thing with Jack Clarke is as well, and this relates to how I think this transfer is going to play out in January, is that he's moved for big money before. He went to Tottenham for, I think it was 12, 13 million, and he sort of got lost there. He didn't play much because he was so young. He went back on loan to Leeds United, didn't play much there. There was other loan moves here and there. I think he went to Stoke, if I'm not mistaken. So I think when Jack Clarke next moves, it will be for the right club. I think he's very much aware of the pitfalls of moving too soon, to be honest. So I'm not expecting Jack Clarke to go anywhere in the January transfer window, to be brutally honest with you, simply because of Sunderland's over-reliance on Jack Clarke for goals this season. He's got 13 goals and 2 assists. God knows where Sunderland would be without Jack Clarke. The problem is, though, that it's a possibility in January that a big money bid could come in and perhaps force Sunderland's hand. It could be too good to turn down. But this would be really hard to justify to fans and to Michael Beale, the head coach. You can't really sell Jack Clarke in January whilst there isn't another Sunderland player scoring goals regularly. It would signal really sort of season suicide in the minds of most people. So, as you can read on the Sunderland Echo website as well, my understanding is that Clarke and Sunderland remain some way off in terms of wages. Clarke obviously wants a higher wage, whereas Sunderland, you know, have offered what they have offered. And that might sound that's like Sunderland are trying to lowball Jack Clarke, and I'm not suggesting that at all because I don't think that's the case. The problem that Sunderland have is that once that Premier League interest comes in from the likes of West Ham, from the likes of Burnley, Jack Clarke and his camp are going to be acutely aware of what they can earn as a Premier League player. And the cold, hard fact of the matter is that Sunderland in the Championship, without any parachute payments, won't be able to match those offers from Premier League clubs. So it's a real tricky one. Despite this, though, I've been told that Jack Clarke is happy at Sunderland. He's not going to force a move in January. He's enjoying his football. He's playing every week. He likes it up here. But the two parties just remain a little way off in terms of wages. So unless Jack Clarke brings his wage demands down, which is unlikely because he's a top quality operator who deserves probably to be on a Premier League wage playing for a Premier League club, a deal's not going to happen. On the flip side of that, a deal's not going to happen unless Sunderland bring their wage offer up, which is unlikely to happen because they're not a Premier League club and they can't afford it. Now, you could argue whether Kira Louis-Dreyfus should be funding that or whether it even makes sense for a Championship club to offer a player Premier League wages. That's something I guess you can discuss in the comment section. I think the gridlock, though, between Clarke and the club has caused some frustration amongst fans, and I think the player and the players' camp, because deals have been managed well with the likes of Dan Ballard, Trey Hume, Patrick Roberts. They've all managed to sign new contracts at Sunderland. So that means that they're going to be earning decent money, which, Clarke could be earning that sort of money himself, but given he signed his contract when Sunderland had just been promoted to the Championship, he's probably actually earning less than these players at the moment. Although that's sort of unconfirmed speculation. So there is a little bit of frustration there as well, I think, between Sunderland and Clarke. But it's not just wages actually that's holding this deal up, the contract deal that is. Sunderland and Clarke have actually struggled to come to an agreement on a buyout clause in Clarke's contract. So for those that aren't aware, these have become pretty common in football in the modern day. It basically means that you have a clause in your contract which says that if a team comes in and pays £20 million, then that bid automatically has to be accepted. Now, forget the £20 million because I don't know the exact fee, but it's my understanding that Sunderland would like that buyout clause to be higher, so they would earn more money should a team come in for Jack Clarke, whereas Jack Clarke's camp, feel that fee should be slightly lower. So again, similar story to the wages, to the contract clause and the buyout clause as well. At present, though, it's understood that there's no buyout clause in Clarke's contract currently. Sunderland signed Clarke from, it's my understanding, of around 750,000 to 800,000 with no buyout clause or buyback clause from Spurs. However, Tottenham will be due a hefty portion of Clarke's fee should he be sold. So that's worth bearing in mind when we're looking at these fees and what clubs potentially could offer Clarke, is that actually some of this money, not all of it, but some of it, will be owed to Tottenham. And, at the end of the day, Jack Clarke has become a highly valuable player for Sunderland in the Championship. He's one of the best players in the Championship. Since Sunderland got promoted, Clarke has come up with 36 goal contributions in 74 league appearances, which is stellar, really. And I've been told as well that despite talks having broken down, having reached an impasse, that there's still actually the relationship between the two camps, Sunderland and Clarke, remains cordial, and there is some hope that a deal could be done in the future. But at the moment, it does seem unlikely that a new contract will be agreed, just given the differences and the level of fee, the level of wages that Clarke would like compared to the level of wages that Sunderland could offer in the Championship if they managed to get promoted. I imagine it would be a completely different story. So that's sort of the bad news, but the good news is that I don't really see Jack Clarke leaving in January. And it's my understanding that he'll probably stay. However, you must always caveat that with the simple fact of the matter is that if a massive bid does come in for Jack Clarke, then it might be hard for Sunderland to turn down. But that in turn, that deal's Jack Clarke leaving Sunderland would be hard to justify to supporters as well. Thanks for watching again. Please let me know how much you think Jack Clarke is worth to Sunderland in the comments description. What is the sort of transfer fee that Sunderland should be entertaining when it comes to Jack Clarke? Could he be possibly sold in January, do you think, based on what I've said? Again, I think it's unlikely, but let me know your thoughts. Thank you all for your comments on recent videos. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. Thank you very much again for watching.